Timothy Mills, Valdez, Alaska, loader operator. We moved here when I was 2, so that was like right after the earthquake. I started riding when we were little kids. Dad, I don't know how or why, but he got one of those skidoos, one of them bubble yellow ones, you know. Yeah. And he'd have to start it for us, so we only got to ride when we could convince him to start it, because we were little. But we lived on the top of Bremner Street, and back then you could play in the park strip. We'd tie a rope in the inner tube to the back of the snow machine and go out there and spin brodies and see, you know, how many kids we could mess up. Hoodoo's what got me. And that was because there was a trail right up and over the middle. And so I got lured in, and then you get up there and it's wide open and you get lured off. And then after you do it 10 or 20 times and nothing bad happens, and then you just you know, you start to think you can handle it, and you just are cautious, and you look around and you're observant, and what you don't realize is what you don't see. You know, because that's what got me. I was there were no cracks where I was riding. Yeah. I rode on the glaciers confidently for 20 years. Anybody, you know, oh no, we're not going up there. Don't do anything. I want to jumps, everything. I've seen other people do it. Yeah. Especially when Tailgate was on a few years back, you know, they'd mess up everything. I'm just like, this is, what's there to be scared of? I like the snow. It's deeper. It's deeper. It's fluffier. It's it's wide open space. You can get anywhere you got to be on a glacier. It's like a freeway. It's hard not to ride on the glacier. Actually, Jackson and a couple other of my friends, after my little incident, went over to Prospector and got themselves 2 screws and a length of rope so that they can get out of a crack if they fall in, because they know they're not going to stop riding on glaciers. Yeah. You really can't. Sometimes you don't even know you're on them. And they're just little glaciers tucked between ones that aren't named, and they got snow over them. You don't know. Yeah. Over there, and I says, Renee, I want to go riding. It's sunny. Can't find anybody. Everyone's working or burnt out or gone. She didn't want to tell me she sold the sled and couldn't go riding, right? I had an extra sled, but she was talking. No, I don't want to. I'm not. No, because she's, you know. So I decided, fine, I'm going to go out there and I'll just toolie around the icebergs, right? I'll mosey out and see how things look. I won't go past the first washout, the crevasse, you know, we're going there towards the hidden lake, the first cutoff. You can't get through there anyways. But I went back there. I like poking around and dropping down in and stuff. Well, Brian Teal had put a trail in along the right-hand side, and that's how me and Donnie had gotten back there 3 days, so I knew we could get through. So I get up there that day, and there's nobody back there except for there's ski tracks of a walker. And I'm like, man, there's somebody back here. So it's not real. I'm not taking real risks. I'll follow the ski tracks and see if I can catch up to dude, right? I could see the storm coming in. I knew it was when I headed out. It was over there, right? And so I drove out there and started playing, and I'm like, I'm headed back just as soon as I can, you know, when it gets too close, I'm done. You know, I'm going to do this sunny weather, right? And it just lasted. And so when I got down there, I couldn't believe I'd walked all afternoon still in the blazing heat, right? But as the sun's going down, I can see the clouds are just boom, making the corner and coming up between the mountains. And I'm just like this. And I knew I was going to have to stop. I knew I was going to have to stop. I wanted to get to the Valdez Glacier. I wanted to get out of the notch I was in, right? So that any through traffic or the walker might be able to take a message back. So, come to find out, he was going straight through. He didn't come back. So, I walked too far. Because it had been really easy, you know, in that hole right before where I was found. Yeah. full of snow. But I just waded the high spot, right? Because it's a deep hole. And then there's a high ridge right in the middle, and then there's another drop on the other side. And I didn't want to go down into either one of those powder holes. So I stayed on the highest spot and went straight. And when I hit I realized, oh, that's when I could see the storm coming. I got to find a place to build. I go to the first drift right there, and about 2 feet in, I hit rocks. And I'm just like, oh man, am I gonna have to walk back a quarter mile and drop into that hole to find enough powder to build myself anything? Well, I wasn't into going backwards. So I went to the next drift, and about 2 feet in, I hit ice. And I went, well, I may not have a choice. So then I stopped and I evaluated, and I was like, up there's the biggest moraine, so it'll have to, maybe that one will work. If that one doesn't work, I gotta go back. And then when I got up there, I dug a hole, and I was down, 2 feet, and I started burrowing out, and I went down another 3, and I just stayed in that 5-foot hole for the night. I had a backpack with everything that I usually take, which had gotten thinned out over the years, you know, because I went to look for my ratchet strap, and it was gone. Somebody else had a problem. I pulled it out. It never gotten put back. So my baggie with the ratchet strap wasn't there to anchor the sled from falling in the crack, because it was hanging by one ski. But it was really, 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 it gave me this feeling right here every time because I sat there for an hour digging around, poking around, evaluating the situation, trying to figure out if I could save anything. And when I realized this thing's gonna kill me before I save it, I started walking. The worst thing I did was leaving my tech. It was so hot, and I'd been shoveling. I'd shoveled the groove to the crack. I'd shoveled out both sides of the crack. I'd shoveled out the back of the sled. I tried to do everything I could to see if I could get the momentum or the weight of the sled to bring it out. It was the thing's a 174, and 100 inches of it was under the lip of the ice. So it was just like, this just no way. There's just absolutely no way. I mean, even if I had my ratchet strap, all I'd have been able to do is anchor it. But I walked away from my shovel. But before I left, I thought I was brilliant. Took my backpack off, took all my tools out, right? Because they're heavy. Things I didn't need in my backpack. Stuck them, put my helmet over the top of it. Another dumb thing. But I was baking. After about 5 minutes, the helmet came off, right? And then the coat came off, and I'm shoveling. Then the vest came off, the tech vest. I was down to a t-shirt in the baking sun, man. It was just like a lawn chair in beer weather. And finally, I realized I got to start walking, because I can get off this glacier and hit that moraine. The moraine is rocky on top. That'll get me all the way down until I have to drop the moraine, traverse over to that high spot between the two moraines, the big one and the little one, and walk straight out to the ice. I had those snack bars, and I had 1 jug of water, which wasn't enough. But who's going to carry around a bunch of water? You take 1 jug, and you figure that's going to be enough water for the day. You don't plan on, because if you were going to be out there for 3 days, you'd have a backpack the size of the snow machine. You'd be dragging a trailer. So you don't plan that kind of stuff. And if I'd have fallen just 6 inches shorter, I'd have fallen in the crack. You know how when you hit something and it makes you kind of do a handstand? I did a slow handstand, and my shoulder just caught the thing, and it made me flip onto my back, and I landed like this. And the sled's right there. And I went like this. Oh, shit! Because I could see a trough 20 feet long over this big, that's all you could see was the ski tracks on both sides and this big hollow track where I had ripped 3 feet of snow off the top of nothing. And I was just like, oh my God. And so I was straight up and down when I hit the far side of the crack. That's what threw me. Boom! 1 ski caught, but it didn't hold it for the month it took someone to get back up there. They had to take it out of the crack.
So you ended up like laying on the edge of the crevasse.
Yeah, I was actually on the edge of the, you know how the cracks build up on the edge, the top, before they go over. So I was actually over the crack. I was on the edge, because when I dug down, I had to back up from where I had been laying to get a straight edge so I could evaluate what was going on. Because I would say about 1.5 feet of the crack does the shelf thing like that. And you have to chop it down until you can see the wall. Otherwise, you're, yeah. and it was like way down there. When Donnie and Tim and Mike, when they all looked over, because I was like, be careful right here where I dug, and I dug it out for them. That's where we got the picture. And they were laying on the ice and like this, and they're like, oh my God, don't drop your phone.
Could you see how deep the crevasse was? Could you see the bottom?
No. What it did is it was a teardrop about 60 feet long. I mean, it looked like an eyeball, but it's like 60 feet long and only 5 feet wide in the middle. And I went right up the middle of it. And it died out on both sides, dropped 60 feet straight. No way up or down. And at the bottom, it got shallower. It went from 5 foot down to, and sideways. And I shoveled all the snow into the hole, hoping I would see something. It just kept disappearing. And now that I think about it and look at the pictures of the glacier without snow on it, I was over those facial cracks that are dropping over the edge, and I was on the top one. Well, they're all bent. And so the cracks go down and like this, and then who knows where they go. I'd have been dead. You guys would have never seen me again. That'd have been the end. Oh man, it was a real reality check. It was a really reality check.
Mm.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you grabbed the gear that you had.
I got rid of the things I didn't need, and then just started walking. I tried lightening the load, and I lightened it too much. Don't ever get rid of your tech vest if you think you have to sleep in a snow cave, because that's hard plastic between you and the snow. From my waist down, I was bulletproof. But I had to take my blanket and my pack and put it under me and lay on that, because I had taken my tech vest off. It didn't dawn on me until that. And another real good thing to remember, Donnie told me, he's like, that carbon monoxide, because I started losing it the second day. You know, I couldn't figure out why my lighter wouldn't work when I was laying down. I'd get up and it'd work fine. I'm laying down, it won't work. And my breathing's really weird, right? But it didn't dawn on me until I'm rescued and I'm explaining this stuff to Donnie. And he goes, oh yeah, carbon monoxide poisoning. You're lucky you didn't just not wake up.
So how big was your hole on the inside? How big of a snow cave did you have?
The first night, I dug down about 1.5 feet, and I got down into the hole and started kicking sideways like this. And when I got it big enough where I could scoop stuff out, I just started scooping it out. And I only made it just big enough to get in. And then I climbed out once I could get in there, you know, and there's just a hole here and I could fit in, and I was comfortable enough. I couldn't stretch out or nothing, but I was just like, it was getting dark and I was tired of being out there. I was just close enough. I took my little silver blankie thing and laid it down, and took another one, go over the top. They both just got shredded over the course of the 2 days, but.
Could you sleep?
Yeah, what I did is I went over to one of the drifts that was on one of the other things where I had been working, because the top layer was crust, right? And I took a big chunk from my door, and I took it over to the hole. And I crawled in, I reached up, and pulled it up over my hole, right? Because it was kind of silty that first night. The snow wasn't, and so that blocked the hole. I smoked some pot and went to sleep. About 6 hours later, woke up, took a leak in the, well, honestly, I just rolled over and took a leak on the snow, and it just kind of sunk in. And latched back up, hit the pipe again real fast, went back to sleep for another 6 hours. You know, like 12 hours. It was like 6 when I think I bedded down, and or 7, and 7 when I got up in the morning, because I got my phone, right? And I sent out messages hoping something will go over, who knows what. And I wake up the next morning, I feel great. I go to get out of the thing, and I push my little board, and it's just sideways. Looks like a TV screen. So I just pulled it back over. I'm like, well, that's not happening. Okay, what's next? Oh, I should do inventory on my backpack. So I take my backpack out and I dump it out. Sure wish I'd have done better.
Yeah.
And everybody always gave me such a hard time about carrying all this stuff, right? But I was the guy who had stuff every time things went wrong. It was just never me. I was always helping other people. I'm carrying all this stuff around, never. So, but anyways, so I got my food. I wasn't really hungry. I got enough weed to get me back, 3 days or whatever, keep me from getting bored or going crazy or just laying there not being able to do nothing, and worry. Because if you think too much, I mean, it's good to be on your toes and do the right thing, but you can get inside your head pretty quickly, if you're not careful. I didn't get a chance to until that last day, because I going through my backpack and I found one of them saws way in the bottom that I didn't even remember was in there. It was in one of the little side pouches. I'm like, what is is that a brace? Pulled it. Oh, sweet. So I said, we'll see how deep this drift is. I start cutting chunks out the bottom, right? Sticking them out the hole, building the hole up. So now my tunnel going up is higher because I've thrown chunks this way, that way, and the other way. So now I stand up, only my head pokes out, and my feet are dropping down farther. So the second night I had lots of room. I had a place over in the corner to go to the bathroom. I had my food and my water over here. I had the lighter and the pipe on this little shelf, and my stuff all laid out in designated areas and stuff, and it took most of the day, Easter Sunday, to carve that all out and make it, kept me all preoccupied and busy. I didn't realize I got wet and sweated on the inside. I was working and doing busy, I wasn't realizing that that wasn't a real good idea. But it wasn't that bad because I wasn't taking nothing off. So come nighttime, come, I realize I'm spending the night again. I just make everything all cozy because I just spent all day setting it up, right? And I fall asleep and I wake up in the middle of the night. And this time I'm a little less comfortable, the cold is starting to soak through. It's finding, that the Mountain Hardwear coat is just saturated, and the wicking thing has wicked the sweat out, and so it's wet on the inside and the out. I mean, so I've kind of got to hold my body away from it. I'm still warm inside, but everything's wet, and so when I'm sleeping, it'll get a cold spot, and I'll have to pull it away from my body or something like that, And it was a lot less comfortable. I was woke up a lot more in the eye, having to shake my legs and work things and just make sure things are doing what they're supposed to, and which is good because you want to do something to get you to go back to sleep so you can go back to sleep. That's how I noticed my lighter wasn't working right. Smoking the pot might have been why I didn't realize it was carbon monoxide, though. There's catch-22. It's got its goods and its bads, just like everything else, right? Yeah, so yeah, and then the storm stopped. I woke up the second day, storm stopped. I get up, the wind's blowing. I can't get out of the cave without frickin' turning into an icicle. I tried. Awesome. The wind stopped. I got up, walked straight into a frickin' drift, waist deep. Oh, good. I'm covered in snow now, right? I'm like, oh, the hell with this. I gotta make a plan. Go back into the cave and brush off and, think about it. Say, well, about that time I hear toop, 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 toop. I jump out of the cave, run right back into the drift. I'm just like, oh man, I just did this. But there's a helicopter. I mean, it's just right there. Just, straight where you guys came up with the snow machines and I was right here. Yeah, they were my height right there. But they didn't see me. And I was like, this is cold. I can't stay out here. That's when I realized, because I stayed out quite a while, waving, see if they were going to turn around, come back, hovering. And when they disappeared, I'm just like, I'm getting solid here. I better get back in. So I got back in there, thawed back out, right? Because once I get out of the wind and in there, my breathing and stuff, and I'm not having the carbon monoxide problem anymore because I'd taken the lid off and I'd moved around a bunch, right? And so I thought, okay, they may just be taking skiers. Nobody knows I'm out here. They're probably just dropping skiers off for the fresh snow. It's right after a snow dump. Or looking. Hopefully they're going to bring skiers back, because there are places where they drop skiers back there. I see them with little tags all over. And I'm like, okay, I pack up all my stuff. Pack up my stuff. I'm going to hike out in the middle where they can see me and see if I can get them to stop. Because I blend too much, because where I had to build the cave was a bad place to be seen. Black and white, and I'm black and white. I didn't have nothing bright in my whole backpack. That's the other thing. I hadn't thought I would need something bright. But yeah, that's something good to have in your pack too, along with ice screws and some rope, and maybe a friend or a carabiner. And they fit in a small area. I went right out and bought one of those Zelos to put on my phone, Casca, and so yeah, that was pretty devastating. I realized at that point, I'm stuck in this cave. Because until that happened, I thought I was walking. What I realized is if you have to spend 2 nights in a cave, you're not walking. You're not walking unless it's sunny like the first day, which was not in the plan. So I started to panic, but I was rescued within an hour after that. And I said, I'm going to get out there where the helicopter can see me if they do come back again. So I packed my gear, and I'm trying to warm back up from that little sitting out there for 5 minutes in the wind, freezing solid. And so I've got my backpack in the hole, and I'm over the top of it like this, listening for, because that's when I'm gonna. I'm gonna go when I'm warm or when I hear that, whichever. And I hear something, but it's not. And I'm like, what the hell is that? And I can't make it out. I'm like, but it's noise. I'm going. So I grab the backpack, and I go to throw it. I said, now I'm gonna leave this in the hole. I'm gonna leave it in the hole. And so I step on it and I climb out the hole. And as soon as I look up, I'd already made a plan that I'm not going into the drift. Don't go straight. You got to turn around and go up the ridge so you can get on a high spot. And so I come out of the hole and I see like 20 snow machines, and they're all right where the helicopter was. And I'm just like, oh shit, they can't see me. They're not even looking at me. And I crawl up the ridge and I'm climbing. It's just like, all of a sudden I'm exhausted. All of a sudden my legs hardly move. I'm just like trying to climb. I'm just like, holy shit, what the fuck, right? And I get to the top of the ridge and all the sleds are disappearing up the straight spot between the 2 holes. And I'm like, oh, that's a good sign. They've got to come back. Right, I didn't realize there was another way out at that time. We hadn't found it. We found it later, and it's really easy. But I'm like, there's a good possibility that many sleds they're looking for me. This is a rescue party. This is good. I'm gonna go to their trail that they're gonna follow back out and be in it when they come back out. Right. So as I turn around to go back and grab my pack, I see these 3 sleds come up. They're pulling that sled, the rescue sled. So they're going slower. And it just happens to be Tim Hodge and Mike, the 2 old guys back there with them, bringing up the rear, the safety guys. So I'm like, oh shit, there's 3 guys still down there. And the guy that's pulling the sled turns around to check on the Mike and Tim, right? And as he turns, he looks straight towards me. And I'm just like, if you don't see me now, they're not gonna see me here. And I'm like, I can barely stand, right? All of a sudden, I see him go, hey, and point his arm like that. And the other two looked and they did this. And then one of the sleds headed my direction. I just, yeah, I was just laid down, dropped onto the top of the hill. It was awesome because, yeah, that last hour was a little, it was starting to really get to me, and I was starting to have to realize that I wasn't going to be able to save myself. Because when I started, I was like, okay, I'm 15 miles out. 5 miles a day, 2 nights, 3 days. I'm not going to die. I'm just going to have to walk for 3 days. It ain't that big of a deal. I know the way. My truck's sitting there waiting for me. Shoot, someone might give me a ride halfway once I get off the glacier down onto the lake. I'm sure there'll be people there. And so, I wasn't too bummed. I wasn't too worried about it. You can't do nothing about it when you're in that situation. The sooner I get out, the sooner I can go back and try to save the sled. But yeah, the sled became very
came to that
mundane
realization on that last day that things were not very good.
No, you really got to. So, I don't know what my suggestion would be about how to stay dry in a snow cave. But that's what you got to do. Is you got to come up with a way to stay dry in a snow cave. One night's pretty easy. I think after one night, you can get out and you're dry enough. If you can walk all day long or put your 5 hours in to get back into another snow cave and do it again. But to stay in the same one for 2 nights, you get really wet.
So what were you really glad that you had with you? What was the most?
I had pain pills too. I had breaking those out, and I'd smoke pot at nighttime. When I wanted to go to sleep, I would just bust one in half and drink it, take it with some water, but I was rationing those because I knew 3 days, and if I can't get to sleep and I need to, or if I do get hurt, I want to have some left. So, plus you got to keep a level head, so you can't just take a bunch and say, oh good, I don't have to think about it, because then you're just gonna die, right? So I just took just enough to keep me from being in pain, so I could focus on what I had to do.
What do you really wish you had with you? What would have made a big difference for you?
Rain pants. Those plastic roll-up rain pants. One of the little packets of flimsy plastic rain gear that won't fall apart like those silver blankets. That I think is something that's really, because it'll keep you dry. You're gonna sweat try not to work hard enough to sweat. That's one thing. And have something that you can put over the outside of you so that everything you have doesn't absorb the moisture that you're living in. So a cheap, heavy duty 6 mil, cheap pullover rain suit would have been way better for me not getting wet. I don't know if I'd have been smart enough to use it at the point, because I didn't realize what the problem was until the problem was there. I didn't know I had to stay dry. Now I know.
What about emergency gear? Is there anything you've added to your list or your
that
your
Zelo
your want list that you would
I
really
went
like
right
to
out
have?
the Zelo. I went and bought that, turned my phone into so I could press SOS. So that was one thing, and I went right out and got that immediately because I had never really seen a use for it until then. I was just like, oh man, this is bad. Because when I went in there, I didn't think about the mountains being so big right there. And the minute you take the corner, you're dead.
And then you mentioned about signaling, about having something bright.
Yeah. Have something. It's not hard to have some bright red or yellow or, and just wad it up, like a glasses in a plastic bag. And,
Did you file a trip plan with anybody, or did you let somebody know where you were going, when you were leaving, when you were coming back, that kind of thing?
I guess Dad noticed. the next morning, he wanted me to do something, and my trailer and my truck wasn't here. And so he called Renee on a whim and asked, hey, do you have any idea where Tim is? Because his trailer and his truck are gone, and it's not nice out. And he usually only disappears with that thing when it's nice. I can't not. And so she said, and then she panicked and went crazy, called Donnie and Randy, and they all scouted, found my truck. And then Donnie knew right where I was. Donnie's like, I know where he is. We were up there the other day, and he didn't want to leave, but his snow machine was breaking down. And yeah, I'd called him trying to get him to go with me, but he's out on the dock working, you know. And so I was just like, and it's in town. It's just the Valdez Glacier.
Yeah. Was that one of the most epic things you've had happen to you?
Yeah. Yeah, and I didn't realize it. Looking back, at the time, it was just another day, you know. I mean, I've been stranded out there before, and I've just saved myself. No one ever hears about it, you know. Shoot, I know my brother Donnie's done crazier stuff, but he just walks home, you know. Don't let nobody know. I got rescued. Donnie's like, isn't it embarrassing? I'm like,
Could happen to any of us.
Yeah.
Right?
I was like, there's nothing I could do about it. My plan was I was going to sit there and wait for the wind to stop, because I couldn't get out in the wind. I realized that when I got up with the helicopter. I was like, I can't get out there and walk. There's snow that sticks to me, and then the wind, which is freezing me. I'm stuck in my hole. Now I have to be rescued. This is not part of the plan, because I wasn't planning on being rescued. I didn't think anybody was looking for me. And at this point, I'm still thinking that chopper was just dropping skiers off, and they didn't. Even if they had saw me, there's just somebody else out here playing, right? I mean, if you're a chopper operator, you're flying around, you see skiers, you see walkers, you see this, that, and the other. You know, you ain't paying no attention to that junk. And if they hadn't have been looking for me, they wouldn't have been, right? And so I didn't think they were, as I didn't think Dad had missed me yet. I didn't know anybody knew I was gone. I live alone.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but I was
cool.
That was the one thing. I was in that cave praying, because I knew Donnie was the only one who could find me. Nobody else was going over nobody rides back there. Nobody except Brandon. Brandon had been back there with his crew, but they weren't going back because it was too choppy and icy and not good. And so I was like, oh man, if they are looking for me, they got to find Donnie. Donnie's the only one who's going to get me. Nobody else is coming this far back. There's a reason why all the parents tell their kids, don't go on the glacier. You can go ride, but don't go on the glacier. You know, and then tell their adults they don't. You see tons of groups that won't even go anywhere where we go. And that's the only way to be safe. Because I'm going to go on the glaciers, but you know it's not safe. You don't know what you're going over. You don't know. You see, I crossed 3 or 4 cracks to get to the big one I ripped the hole in and almost died. And never even knew it until I was walking back out my track. And it started looking like a dotted line. Right? And no, it gave me a little education on glaciers, because I thought I was pretty fucking good about it. And really, I'm pretty lucky. I know that's, you know, my advice would be careful, but there's no way to be careful. I mean, there's no way to be 100% sure you're not in danger, because you are. If you're on a glacier, you're in danger. And most people just go from A to B. And I'm not one of those people. And the thing is I've gotten away with it for so long. I'm going to have a hard time. I don't know. I haven't tested the theory yet. I haven't been back out there since it happened.
something tied to the skid, but it should be